For tuning in to this episode of Café con Letras. My name is Pastor Ramny Perez, and Café con Letras, we aim to provide biblical answers for the block. Now, I'm really excited for today's episode because I get to have the very special, distinguished, honored guest, my best friend and my wife, with me as we think about and talk with you all about the topic of marriage. We also have another distinguished guest, and that's our little baby Scarlett Nesney. And so, really, we've done a post on how relationships could go wrong. Biblically, what are the things that can influence a relationship so that it actually fails to if you don't obey God's word. And today we wanted to open up a little bit of our home, our relationship, and just allow you to see some of the things that we've found helpful for us in building a relationship that is joyful, peaceful, and we hope glorifying to the Lord up to this point by His help through His grace. Essentially, what I'm really asking is, and how do folks not end up on a red table with entanglements? Talk about entanglements. No, I'm just kidding. She doesn't like that joke. But so this is what we'll do. I'll lob some questions for us to interact with, and really, maybe we can chew on it together and allow people into our world a little bit. So first, we've talked a lot about at church in our sermon series that a lot of the problems come into play when people don't know how to properly define marriage. And so how has God's definition and God's shaping of what marriage is helped you in approaching marriage and in building our marriage?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is like that God is a good God, and so His definitions are not just there; they're there like because they're the best version of our lives. Like He desires the best for us, and so when He outlines things for us, like it's because it's the best for us. So that's one thing I think about, like. And I think also just like how both the wife and the husband reflect different parts of God, like headship of a husband and like submission of Jesus, like it's kind of like in reflection of the wife, and then like headship of God the Father for the husband. So I feel like that's something too that's like really helpful for me to see that all of it reflects God, and all of it is equal and important, and that really helps me as well.
Awesome. So beginning with thinking about the idea that God Himself is good, so His intentions are good when He designs something, and it's a helpful and a blessed thing that we flourish when we begin to walk in His design. It's interesting, like I think a lot of people, they are interested in getting into a relationship, not so much because of something bigger than themselves, but more because of, there's a certain completion or source of joy. Like for example, what I mean is like they share things like, man, I'm looking for my soulmate. I'm looking for that person that completes me. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to find babe. And oftentimes that gets folks into trouble because they're not thinking about, God's idea, God's design, but really their own satisfaction. How has aiming not simply at, finding a partner that's really your soulmate helped you to actually be in a joyful marriage? I'm presuming you're happy being married to me. Just kidding. Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think about that idea? So like the idea of soulmates and not actually helping you be happy in a relationship.
I guess like it's like idolizing like you. If you were my soulmate, perhaps that would like play into that, like you're perfect for me, and so And so like I don't know, there's like some type of idolizing you, perhaps. I don't know. Also, this doesn't account for like it takes a lot of work. I feel like perhaps soulmates, like, the concept of soulmates, like it just works, and it's like if it just fits like a puzzle, but like where's like, why then is marriage so difficult? Perhaps like it's two strangers who are not family, and then they become family, knowing each other, and then it just takes a lot of work.
That's good.
There's like aspects of like soulmate theories that I kind of like I can like sympathize with a little bit, but I don't know if I believe in soulmates. I don't. I mean, there's no part of me that does, but I definitely think perhaps those are some things that some flaws in that theory of soulmate.
What you just said there is so helpful, because I think like just the idea of expectations, and if what it means to be in a working relationship, a healthy marriage, a healthy romantic relationship, is that you don't have to put in work. Yeah, because I think of like, that phrase that people say like, oh, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, every job is going to have some drags to it. You get what I'm saying? There's going to be some work. You're going to have to sweat. In a fallen world, nothing we do, will bear fruit vinelessly. It will require some work. And so I think that idea, just the reality of expectations, is important and really helpful. The idea, of course, the idea of expectations, and you are going to have to work at this, even if the relationship is a source of joy and peace. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's really good. That's really helpful. So what are some of the ways that, we've been married 7 years, have been together 9 years, have known each other 15 years? Is that correct? And what are some of the ways that we've had to work over the years? You get what I'm saying? At making this relationship flourish and joy, that it hasn't just been like smooth sailing. You know what I mean?
What are some things?
Or even if it's been smooth sailing, it's required hands-on attention. Can you think of some ways?
I think communication. So like I'm really bad at expressing myself, or even knowing what's wrong, or just like self-reflection. And so sometimes it's difficult to communicate what you want or how you feel. You have to, reflect on those things first, make it known to yourself, and then tell it to your spouse. So I think that is a big part that we had to work on. It's not natural for me, so we had to work on that.
Yeah, I remember that. It's like a fine-tuning regularly. But I would agree with you. That's an area for it. I think even, if we're going to be vulnerable, just in the area of intimacy, you continue to develop that and grow in that. It's a book we read early on, Sheet Music, and it talks about, the reality of in marital intimacy. You're trying to make music, but at first you're an unskilled musician and you're not really working together. You got to learn your instrument, and you also got to learn to put that together. And so then you can begin to make music. And I think those are some key areas in a relationship that could be sources of conflict for people, but require attention, right? Require work, require
and I think
focusing on that.
And I think that's communication as well. If not when the intimacy is occurring, but like after or before, like at dinner or in a date, or something where you can really like tell each other your desires and what you wish for, what you don't like, what you do like. Things like that need to be communicated and on a regular as well, because people are always changing. And especially physically, I feel like that happens. So
yeah, you're consistently changing over the years, for sure. That's good. That's so good. So those are some areas we've seen work in. I think in our day, man, people have a lot of trouble. And I recently preached on, roles in marriage. and the reality that the Bible calls, men to, and gives them a position of leadership, but calls them to love sacrificially, and then the woman is called in Ephesians chapter 5 to submit to her husband. And nowadays that's viewed as inherently oppressive and evil. Is there any way that you can think of that's actually helped you flourish as a woman?
I think so. When I was learning about submission, one thing that really helped me that was just like seeing it, and I mentioned this already, like Jesus submitting to God's will. And so I thought I never had heard that kind of description or that way when speaking about submission for marriage. And so I thought that was so helpful. It kind of made me be like, well, who am I to not submit? Jesus himself submitted to God's will. And so I saw that. I saw like, he submitted to the God's plan for salvation for the whole world, right? And so it's like that act of submission saved everybody. Or like, brought to life the plan that God had forever. And so just thinking about like how Jesus submitted and what that all entails helped me a lot. And so like, how can I not flourish in imitating Jesus? So, and then something specific is just like submitting when it's difficult, like, and learning to do that in terms of my husband, but then that's also ultimately that's submitting to God's will for my life. And so it's just dropping everything. So that's my answer. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's so good. And that really entails a vision of life that says, I flourish, not when I, as an individual, I'm primarily expressing every single desire and longing that I have, which is the idea of flourishing I think our culture has nowadays, right? I individually have the autonomy and know best how I can flourish, versus saying, honestly, living for God and His will as He's created me and the ways He's molded me, doing the task He's called me to, is true flourishing, is true joy, is true life. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Okay, so one of the areas that we personally, I think, really enjoy about our marriage, I know that I enjoy, it's the fact that, we can really let our hair down around each other and just be who we are. We often tell people, and we often talk about, the scripture and what the Bible teaches us is sort of like the foundation and the framing of the structure of a home, but our friendship is really the furnishing inside of our home, how we decorate it, how we paint it, what it smells like. So how have we gone about cultivating a friendship together? What has worked? What hasn't worked? Let's have a little bit of conversation on that, because I think I was talking to somebody, a member of our church this week, and I'm particularly weak at being very vulnerable with other people by and large. I don't think I'm negligent with it. Like, I don't think I hide. I just think I don't always immediately go and start seeking people out. You know what I mean? If I'm struggling with something. But I think in our relationship, I always come to you, and vice versa. We're a source of comfort to each other, and our friendship is just so free, so freeing, such a source of joy to both of us. And I know, like, for example, during the pandemic, there were seasons where I struggled with just loneliness in ministry. Loneliness. It's okay, baby girl. It's okay. It's okay. We're almost there. Yeah. Haha. Just like loneliness and carrying a lot on our shoulders. I know a lot of pastors have talked about that, but I specifically felt that, and I think by virtue of my calling and my role, you also felt that at home. But we found solace in each other to a certain extent, right? Like, we leaned on each other. So what are some helpful thoughts about ways we've, by God's grace, been able to cultivate our friendship that maybe other folks can learn from? See? ¿Y qué más pasó?
I think just spending time with each other. And just talking with each other. And time. I feel like our friendship has been built over time, you know. So, and so I think time has a lot to do with it. And that can happen like, no need to say anything like you need time before you get married in terms of like dates or like years or like, you know, specific numbers or anything. But I think like a friendship will develop. A deep friendship will develop with your significant other if you like spend time with one another and kind of like talk to one another, see what you guys enjoy, what you don't, laughing with one another, stuff like that, crying with one another. Sorry, guys.
I think that's good. I think definitely time. I think intentional conversations.
Yeah.
Intentional fun conversations. And then being intentional to try and enjoying in each other's like things that you like. But I think like being intentional with trying to sort of cross over and like what each other likes. So I know that you've learned about basketball because you know I enjoy playing basketball. No, you know you'd like to watch something else on evenings, but you've learned about basketball, and I in turn have learned about cooking because you love to cook and you love to talk about cooking and you love everything that has to do with cooking, including watching random videos about people just cutting, you know, onions, and it's just like, what in the world are we doing?
If you can see my face.
You know, I think a lot about, you know, humor. Like we laugh a lot together. And we have conversations that people on the outside are just kind of like, what in the world? Because we'll have random conversations. We just talk about whatever.
I think like we are for one another. So that's like really nice, like to know that he's my friend and like he's for me. And so I think ultimately that's what's kind of like builds like that trust is just knowing that person is for you. So you can come to them with like a difficult topic. You can come to them like about a flaw that they have or that you have. You know, and there's not going to be like, what's he thinking or oh, this is probably what he thinks of me or something. Like I don't have any of that. Like when he tells me something, like when you tell me something, it's like I know that it's true. You know, whatever it is, and like he'll tell me a difficult thing, he'll tell me a beautiful thing, and I'll believe him. Like, and so I think that's also friendship, right? Because sometimes like it's so sensitive, like being a spouse, like being a husband or a wife, is so sensitive. You're so vulnerable. Sometimes you don't know, like, is that person for me? What he's saying, is it true? Like, so I think that.
That's good.
Well, I'm gonna step off, but this is great.
That's good. I think due to the dynamics of we are parents of 2 young children and could only get babysitter for 1, really, this is us just trying to vulnerably and honestly allow you into our world, and thought that might be a helpful way to see an actual marriage work through, you know, some of the things that the Bible teaches us about marriage. If you have any questions or comments or things that you want us to do an episode on Café con Letras for, please comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and share if you found this conversation helpful. You got to just share just because my wife was willing to jump on while we had a baby. All right. See you next time.